The dopamine and phone addiction reset. The dopamine detox plan to beat phone and social media addiction, rewire your brain, reclaim your screen time, and live with clarity and joy by Adam Prescott. Introduction. Tristan Harris sat in his office at the Google headquarters in Mountain View, California. It was 2013, and he was surrounded by some of the smartest people in the world. Around him, engineers were working on ways to make apps faster and prettier. But Tristan felt a growing pit in his stomach. As a design ethicist, his job was to think about how these tools affected people's lives. He realized that the company wasn't just making helpful tools anymore. They were building a giant machine designed to steal people's time. He stayed up late one night and put his fears into a slide deck. He titled it A Call to Minimize Distraction and Respect Users' Attention. He sent it to a small group of friends at the company. By the next morning, it had gone viral inside Google. Hundreds of employees were reading it. Even the top bosses were talking about it. Tristan had started an internal rebellion. He pointed out that a handful of designers in California were deciding how 1 billion people spent their time every single day. He saw that the attention economy had become a race to the bottom of the brainstem. To keep people clicking, companies had to use tricks that messed with the human brain. They used bright red dots, likes, and endless scrolling. These weren't just features. They were hooks. Tristan eventually left Google because he knew he couldn't fix the problem from the inside. He realized that the machines were winning. People weren't using their phones were using them, the invisible leash. You probably know exactly what Tristan was worried about. You feel it every time you reach for your phone to check the time, only to find yourself scrolling through a social media feed 20 minutes later. You don't even remember why you picked up the device. You feel it when you are lying in bed, the blue light hitting your face, while your body screams for sleep. You feel it when you are at dinner with people you love, but your mind is miles away, wondering if anyone commented on your last post. This isn't a lack of willpower. You aren't weak or lazy. You are up against a multi-billion-dollar industry that employs thousands of experts whose only job is to keep you looking at the screen. They have studied your brain better than you have. They know which colors make you anxious and which sounds make you feel like you just won a prize. They have turned your smartphone into a slot machine that you carry in your pocket. Most of us are living in a state of presence absence. We are physically in the room, but our minds are somewhere else. We are notification slaves, reacting to every buzz and beep like a dog waiting for a treat. This constant state of being on is exhausting. It leads to a foggy brain, a short temper, and a feeling that life is passing you by. You might even feel a phantom vibration, that strange sensation where you think your phone is shaking in your pocket, but when you check, there's nothing there. Your brain has been trained to expect a hit of digital noise at every moment. The promise of the Reset This book is your map out of the digital woods. You are about to go through a dopamine reset. This is not about throwing your phone in the trash or moving to a cave. It is about taking back the steering wheel of your own life. By the end of this journey, you will transform from a scattered, notification slave into a digital architect. You will be able to sit and read a book for an hour without feeling an itch to check your messages. You will stop comparing your behind-the-scenes life to everyone else's highlight reel. You will wake up feeling rested because your brain isn't buzzing from late-night scrolling. You will find a deep sense of peace that you haven't felt in years. You will regain the leisure sovereignty to spend your evenings on hobbies and family rather than doom scrolling. The plan you are about to follow is based on hard science and the wisdom of people who have studied human behavior for centuries. We will look at how your brain's reward system works and how to rewire it so that you find joy in real things again, like a conversation, a walk, or a job well done. A life on the edge. Leo Vance stood at his kitchen island in Seattle, staring at his phone. It was 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. His wife, Sarah, was putting some pasta on the table. His 5-year-old daughter, Mia, and 3-year-old son, Sam, were playing on the rug at his feet. Leo is a senior project manager at a fast-growing software firm. He's 34, ambitious, and good at his job. But lately, he feels like he's drowning. His boss sends emails at 9:00 p.m., and Leo feels like he has to answer them immediately to stay relevant. He tells himself he's doing it for his family, but he hasn't truly looked at his family in weeks. "Daddy, look." Mia said. She held up a drawing of a purple cat with 6 legs. Leo didn't look up. His thumb was moving fast, scrolling through a LinkedIn thread about productivity hacks. He felt a low-level buzz of anxiety in his chest. His work email had 42 unread messages. "That's nice, honey," Leo murmured. He didn't even see the cat. Sarah sighed as she set the plates down. "Leo, the phone, please." "I'm just checking one thing," Leo said, his voice sharp. "It's for the big launch next week. I have to be always on or things fall apart." Leo felt irritable. He felt like he was missing something important, even though he was looking at his phone every 3 minutes. He was physically there, but he was mentally 1,000 miles away. He felt like a spectator in his own life. Later that night, as he scrolled through YouTube clips of people fixing old watches, something he didn't even care about, he realized he couldn't remember the last time he felt truly happy or calm. He was tired of being a passenger in his own head. He wanted his life back. The chemistry of why to understand why Leo, and most of us, feel this way, we have to look at a chemical in the brain called dopamine. For a long time, people thought dopamine was about pleasure. They thought it was the feel-good chemical. But scientists have discovered that dopamine is actually about wanting. It is the molecule of more. Your brain releases dopamine when it expects a reward. In the wild, this helped us find food and stay alive. But today, every like, every ding, and every new piece of information triggers a tiny squirt of dopamine. Because the internet is infinite, the more never ends. Your brain gets flooded. To protect itself, your brain starts to turn down its own receptors. This means that over time, you need more and more screen time just to feel normal. When you aren't on your phone, you feel a dopamine dip. This feels like boredom, sadness, or anxiety. You reach for the phone not because it makes you happy, but because you want to stop the pain of the dip. You are stuck in a loop. This book will show you how to break that loop. We aren't going to use just willpower. Willpower is like a battery that runs out. Instead, we are going to use systems. We are going to change your environment, your habits, and the way you think about your time. The roadmap ahead, we are going to take this step by step. First, we will dive into the history of how we got here. We will meet a psychologist named B.F. Skinner who discovered how to turn pigeons and people into addicts using random rewards. We will learn from a philosopher named Blaise Pascal who figured out 400 years ago why we hate sitting quietly in a room. Here is the path we will walk together, the science of desire. You will learn exactly how your brain is being hijacked and why the ding of a text is more addictive than the message itself. The dopamine loop. We will explore why you feel so bad when you try to stop scrolling and how to handle the withdrawal phase. The digital surgery. You will learn how to break the slot machine in your pocket by changing your phone settings to serve you, rather than the other way around. The hard reset. I will guide you through a 24-hour total detox that will act as a system reboot for your brain. Reclaiming focus. You will learn how to build attention stamina so you can do deep, meaningful work again. Comparison culture. We will talk about how to stop letting the digital world make you feel less than and how to find real connection. The 7 rituals. You will get a set of daily habits to keep your life distraction-free for the long haul. Leo's journey starts today. He is about to realize that the world can wait, but his life can't. Your journey starts today, too. The first step isn't to delete every app or throw your phone into the lake. The first step is to understand the game being played. Once you see the strings, it is much harder for the machines to pull them. Turn the page. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Mastering the Chemistry of Des. A man's thumb hovers half an inch above a glass screen. It is a small, quiet movement. The thumb presses down, slides toward the bottom of the phone, and then lets go. For a split second, a small circle spins at the top of the app. Then, with a soft click sound or a tiny vibration, the screen snaps back up. New photos appear. New words fill the space. This tiny gesture is called the pull to refresh. It feels as natural as breathing to billions of people. But that thumb movement is not an accident. It is the result of 100 years of research into how the human brain works. It is the end point of a journey that started in a laboratory with a hungry bird and a wooden box. Behind that simple swipe is a massive web of servers, code, and billions of dollars, all designed to make that thumb move again and again. The story of why we cannot put our phones down does not start with the invention of the internet. It starts with the way our brains handle desire. To understand why we feel itchy when we aren't checking our notifications, we have to look at the chemistry of wanting. The man and the box. In the 1930s, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner sat in a lab at Harvard University. He was interested in how creatures learn. He built a small, plain box. Inside was a lever and a tray for food. He put a pigeon inside the box and waited. At first, the pigeon just walked around. It pecked at the floor. It flapped its wings. Eventually, by accident, it bumped into the lever. A small pellet of food tumbled into the tray. The pigeon ate the food. A few minutes later, it hit the lever again. Another pellet fell. Soon, the pigeon learned the rule: press the lever, get the food. This is called predictable reward. It is simple, but Skinner wanted to see what happened if he changed the rules. He decided to make the lever broken on purpose. Sometimes, when the pigeon pressed the lever, food came out. Other times, nothing happened. The reward was random. The result changed the world of psychology forever. When the food came out every single time, the pigeon only pressed the lever when it was hungry. It was calm. It was in control. But when the food came out randomly, the pigeon went crazy. It began to peck at the lever hundreds of times an hour. It wouldn't stop. Even if it wasn't hungry, it kept pecking. It became obsessed with the possibility of a reward. Skinner called this variable ratio reinforcement. We can call it the slot machine effect. If you knew a slot machine would give you exactly $1 every time you put in 4 quarters, you would get bored very fast. You would do it once or twice and then walk away. But because you might win big on the next pull, or the one after that, you stay in your seat for hours. Modern apps are digital Skinner boxes. Every time you pull down to refresh your feed, you are pecking at the lever. Sometimes you get a pellet, like on your phone, a funny video, or a message from a friend. Most of the time, you get nothing special. But that randomness is exactly what keeps your thumb moving. Your brain is wired to chase the maybe. The molecule of more. For a long time, people thought the chemical in our brain called dopamine was about pleasure. They thought it was the reward we felt when we ate a piece of cake or won a game. But in 1954, 2 researchers named James Olds and Peter Milner found something much darker. They were working with rats. They placed a tiny wire in a specific part of a rat's brain. When the rat pressed a lever, the wire would send a small spark of electricity into that spot. They thought they were hitting the part of the brain that felt good. The rats became so obsessed with that spark that they stopped eating. They stopped drinking water. They ignored their babies. One rat pressed the lever 2,000 times in an hour. They would walk across an electric floor that burned their feet just to reach the lever. They chose the spark over survival. They eventually died of exhaustion and hunger, still trying to press the lever. Later, scientists realized that these rats weren't feeling pleasure in the way we think of it. They weren't happy. They were in a state of constant, desperate wanting. The spark was releasing dopamine, but dopamine isn't the pleasure molecule. It is the more molecule. Dopamine does not say, "This feels good." It says, "Hey, pay attention, this might be important, do it again." It is the chemical of anticipation. It is the itch that tells you there might be something amazing waiting for you if you just check your phone one more time. When you hear your phone ding, your dopamine levels spike before you even see the message. The ding is the signal that a reward might be coming. The spike of dopamine creates a feeling of tension. You feel a physical need to pick up the device to release that tension. The apps on your phone are designed to trigger this spike as often as possible. They use bright red circles for notifications because red is the color our ancestors used to find berries and avoid blood. They use sounds that mimic the frequency of a human baby crying because we are biologically unable to ignore that sound. Your phone is not just a tool. It is a high-tech delivery system for the more molecule. The ghost in the pocket. Leo Vance sat in his office on the 22nd floor of a glass building in Seattle. Outside, the gray rain blurred the city, but Leo didn't notice. He was looking at a spreadsheet, trying to finish a project plan that was already 3 days late. Suddenly, he felt it. A faint buzz against his right thigh. He reached for his pocket, pulled out his phone, and tapped the screen. Nothing. No new emails, no texts, no missed calls. He looked at the screen for a few seconds, confused. He put it back in his pocket. 2 minutes later, he felt it again, a sharp vibration. He grabbed the phone faster this time. Again, the screen was blank. This is called phantom vibration syndrome. It happens when our brains become so used to the dopamine spike of a notification that they start to make up the sensation. Leo's brain was so hungry for a pellet from the Skinner box that it was hallucinating the buzz. He tried to go back to his spreadsheet, but his focus was gone. He felt a strange pressure in his chest. He told himself he would just check the news for a second to calm his mind. He opened a news app, then he checked his work Slack, then he checked his LinkedIn. 20 minutes passed. He hadn't read anything important. He hadn't finished a single row on his spreadsheet. He felt tired and a little bit sick, like he had eaten too much candy. He looked at his hands and realized he didn't even remember making the decision to open the apps. His body had simply done it while his mind was somewhere else. Leo looked down at his phone. He had just read an article about B.F. Skinner's pigeons. He looked at his own hand, still hovering near the screen. A cold realization washed over him. "I am the pigeon," he whispered to the empty office. He wasn't using the phone to get work done. He wasn't using it to talk to his wife, Sarah. He was pecking at the lever because he couldn't handle the silence of his own thoughts. He was trapped in a loop that he hadn't even realized he was in. The architecture of the loop to master the chemistry of desire, we have to see the framework that keeps us trapped. This isn't just about bad habits. It is about a four-step loop that happens in our brains thousands of times every day. The trigger, this can be external, like a ding or a red dot, or it can be internal, like feeling bored, lonely, or stressed. The action, this is the smallest possible move you can make to get a reward. Swiping, clicking, or scrolling. It has to be easy. If it's hard, the loop breaks. The variable reward, this is the maybe. You might see a funny meme, or you might see a boring ad. The fact that you don't know which one is coming is what makes the dopamine spike. The investment, this is when you do something that makes you more likely to come back. You leave a comment, you post a photo, or you follow someone. You are putting skin in the game, which sets the trigger for the next loop. This loop is how a 30-second check of the weather turns into an hour of looking at photos of people you don't even like. Your brain is chasing the next spike, hoping that the next scroll will bring the big win that makes the tension go away. But the secret of dopamine is that the tension never really goes away. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. In the old world, rewards were hard to find. If an ancient human wanted a dopamine hit, they had to hunt an animal, find a beehive full of honey, or travel miles to find a mate. The reward was rare, so the brain stayed balanced. Today, we have infinite rewards in our pockets. We have more information, more entertainment, and more social approval available in 1 minute than our ancestors had in an entire lifetime. Our brains weren't built for this. We are using ancient hardware to run very powerful, very addictive modern software. The slot machine in your pocket, think about the way a phone is designed. The pull to refresh isn't just a way to update the screen. It mimics the physical motion of pulling the arm of a slot machine. The bright colors, the smooth animations, and the way the content slides into place are all designed to keep you in a state of flow. Designers in Silicon Valley actually call this brain hacking. They study the work of B.F. Skinner to figure out how to keep you on the app for just 1 more minute. They know that if they can control your dopamine, they can control your time. And in the modern world, your time is worth more than gold. Every time you look at your screen, you are entering a battle. On one side is you, trying to live your life and get your work done. On the other side are thousands of the smartest engineers in the world using the most powerful computers on Earth to try to get you to peck at the lever. It is not a fair fight. If you feel like you have no willpower, it's because your willpower is being attacked by a system designed to bypass your thinking brain and go straight to your animal brain. But there is a way out. Awareness is the first step toward breaking the loop. When you realize that the itch to check your phone is just a chemical spike, it loses some of its power over you. You can start to see the lever for what it really is. The first spark of awareness. Leo Vance sat on the light rail train on his way home from work. Usually, this was his scrolling time. He would put his headphones in and disappear into a world of sports scores and political arguments. But today, he kept his phone in his bag. He felt the itch almost immediately. It was a physical crawling sensation on the back of his neck. His hand kept twitching toward his bag. He felt a strange sense of panic, like he was forgetting something incredibly important. He forced himself to look around the train car. He saw a row of 6 people sitting across from him. Every single one of them was hunched over a glowing screen. Their faces were pale in the blue light. None of them were looking at each other. None of them were looking out the window at the sunset reflecting off the Puget Sound. He saw a young woman smiling at her phone, her thumb moving in a blur. He saw an older man with a tired face scrolling through a news feed with a look of pure misery. They looked like the pigeons in Skinner's lab, pecking at the lever, waiting for the food that would never truly satisfy them. Leo felt a surge of sadness, but also a tiny spark of hope. For the first time in years, he was the one watching, not the one being watched by the machine. He still felt the more molecule screaming in his brain, demanding his attention, but he also felt something else. He felt the cool air from the train's vent. He heard the rhythmic thrum-thrum of the wheels on the tracks. He noticed the way the light hit the ripples in the water outside. It wasn't a reward in the way a notification was. It didn't make his heart race, but it felt real. It felt like his own life. He knew the battle was just beginning. He knew that tomorrow the itch would be back. He knew that his brain was still wired to want the pellet. But as the train pulled into his station, Leo realized that he didn't want to be a pigeon anymore. He wanted to be the man who built the box, not the one trapped inside it. He stood up, gripped the strap of his bag, and stepped off the train. He didn't reach for his phone. He just walked toward the stairs, listening to the sound of his own footsteps in the quiet evening air. The loop was still there, but for the first time, he was standing outside of it. Chapter 2: The Dopamine Loop: Why We Can't. The sun was just beginning to peek over the trees in Seattle when Leo Vance woke up. It was a Saturday, the kind of morning that usually felt like a race to the coffee pot and a scramble to check the overnight emails. But today felt different. The house was still. His wife, Sarah, was still asleep. The kids hadn't started their usual morning gymnastics in the hallway. Leo sat on the edge of the bed and felt a rare sense of peace. He had made a promise to himself the night before. He was going to take the kids to the park, and for the first time in 3 years, he was going to leave his phone at home. He imagined himself as the fun dad, the one who actually pushed the swing instead of the one who pushed the swing with one hand while typing a status update with the other. He felt a surge of pride. He was in control. He was the master of his own mind. That feeling lasted exactly 42 minutes. By the time he was bucking Sam into his car seat, the quiet peace had turned into a low-level hum of static in his brain. His hand kept drifting toward his empty pocket. Each time his fingers met fabric instead of glass, a tiny jolt of electricity seemed to shoot up his arm. It wasn't a physical pain, but it was a physical need. It was the same feeling you get when you realize you've left the stove on, or when you can't remember if you locked the front door. He told himself it was fine. He told himself he was just rewiring. But as he pulled out of the driveway, the static got louder. He wasn't thinking about the park anymore. He was thinking about the red dots. He was thinking about the likes on the photo he'd posted of the kids' breakfast. He was thinking about the news. He was thinking about anything other than the quiet world right in front of him. Leo didn't know it yet, but he was living through a modern version of a famous experiment from the 1950s. He wasn't just bored. He was experiencing a biological crash. The Room of Nothing in 1954, a group of researchers at McGill University in Montreal decided to see what happens when a human being is truly left alone with their own mind. They weren't looking at phones, of course. Those didn't exist yet. They were looking at sensory deprivation. The lead researcher, Donald Hebb, wanted to know how the brain reacts when you take away all the noise, all the sights, and all the things to do. He hired a group of college students and offered them $20 a day. In the 1950s, that was a lot of money, roughly the equivalent of $200 today. All the students had to do was lie on a comfortable bed in a small, quiet room. They wore translucent goggles so they couldn't see anything but a soft, gray light. They wore cotton gloves and cardboard tubes over their arms so they couldn't feel anything. A constant, low hum of an air conditioner drowned out any outside sounds. They had plenty of food, a bathroom nearby, and a soft pillow. It sounded like the easiest way to make a buck in history. Most of the students figured they would catch up on sleep or spend the time thinking about their futures. But things went wrong almost immediately. The students didn't feel relaxed. They didn't feel peaceful. Within just a few hours, they began to feel a deep, gnawing anxiety. Their brains were so desperate for something, anything, to happen that they started making things up. Some students began to see ghostly shapes or patterns of light. Others heard voices or music that wasn't there. One student reported seeing a procession of squirrels marching across his field of vision. The experiment was supposed to last for weeks. Most of the students couldn't make it past 2 days. They were willing to give up the easy money just to get out of the room and hear a car horn or see a person's face. They discovered that the human brain doesn't just like stimulation. It is addicted to it. When the noise stops, the brain panics. This is the hidden wall we all hit when we try to put down our phones. We think we are just looking for information or entertainment. We think we are checking in. But the truth is more intense. We are like those students in the McGill lab. We have become so used to a constant stream of digital pings that our brains have forgotten how to function in the quiet. When Leo Vance sat in his car and felt that itch in his pocket, he wasn't just missing his apps. His brain was reacting to the quiet as if it were a physical threat. He was in the middle of a dopamine crash, and his mind was screaming for a fix. The seesaw in your head. To understand why Leo was struggling, we have to look at a common myth. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. We think that when we see a funny video or get a text from a friend, our brain gives us a little splash of happy juice, and that's why we keep coming back. That is only half the story. And the second half is the reason we can't stop scrolling. Imagine a seesaw inside your brain. On one side is pleasure, on the other side is pain. In a perfectly healthy brain, that seesaw stays mostly level. This state is called homeostasis. Your brain wants to keep things balanced. It doesn't want you to be too high or too low for too long. When you do something that feels good, like eating a piece of chocolate or seeing a like on your Instagram post, your brain tips the seesaw toward the pleasure side. A little bit of dopamine is released. It feels great. But because your brain is a master of balance, it immediately tries to level the seesaw out. It does this by adding a weight to the pain side. This is what scientists call the opponent process theory. For every high, your brain creates a corresponding low. This is why, after the initial rush of a like wears off, you often feel a tiny bit worse than you did before you checked your phone. You feel a little restless, a little empty, a little itchy. The problem with our phones is that we never give the seesaw a chance to level out. Think about what happens when you scroll through a feed. You see a funny video, pleasure tip. Your brain starts to push back, pain tip. But before the pain can settle in, you swipe and see a photo of a beautiful sunset, pleasure tip. Then you see a news headline, pleasure excitement tip. You are slamming the pleasure side of the seesaw over and over again, like a kid jumping on one end of a plank. Your brain, desperate to keep you from flying off the handle, starts piling massive weights on the pain side. It builds up a dopamine resistance. Eventually, the seesaw gets stuck on the pain side. This is a state called anhedonia. It's a fancy word that basically means nothing feels good anymore. This is the great phone myth. We think we are scrolling to feel good. But after a certain point, we aren't scrolling for pleasure at all. We are scrolling just to get back to level. We are scrolling to stop the pain of being bored. We are trying to lift those heavy weights off the pain side of the seesaw, but the only tool we have is the very thing that put them there in the first place. The park and the breaking point. Leo Vance arrived at the park with his two kids, Sam and Mia. The sun was warm and the sound of other children playing filled the air. By all accounts, it was a perfect morning, but Leo wasn't there. Not really. He was standing by the sandbox watching Sam dig with a plastic shovel. Every 30 seconds, Leo's hand would twitch toward his hip. He felt a physical tightness in his chest. He felt irritable. He found himself looking at the other parents. Most of them had their phones out. He felt a sharp pang of envy. What are they seeing? He wondered. Is there an emergency at work? Did that client email me back about the project? Daddy, look, Mia shouted from the top of the slide. She was waving her arms, waiting for him to cheer. That's nice, honey, Leo said. He didn't even look up. He was staring at the ground, wondering if he could make an excuse to go back to the car for just a second to check the GPS, even though he knew exactly where he was. A few minutes later, Sam accidentally knocked over a bucket of sand. It was a tiny mistake, the kind of thing a 3-year-old does 10 times a day. But to Leo, it felt like the end of the world. Sam, watch what you're doing, Leo snapped. His voice was sharper than it needed to be. The little boy flinched, his bottom lip beginning to tremble. In that moment, Leo felt a wave of shame. He wasn't mad at Sam. He was mad because he was in withdrawal. He was experiencing the dopamine dip, that heavy weight on the pain side of the seesaw. Because he wasn't getting his constant hits of digital stimulation, his brain was interpreting the quiet of the park as a form of suffering. He had become so used to the high of the screen that normal life now felt low. He realized with a sick feeling in his stomach that he was using his phone the same way a smoker uses a cigarette. He didn't smoke because he loved the taste of tobacco. He smoked so he wouldn't feel the itch of not smoking. Leo looked at his son's face and realized he had lost something precious. He had lost the gap. The space between Viktor Frankl was a man who knew more about suffering and human nature than almost anyone in history. He was a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps during World War II. While he was there, he lost everything: his family, his home, his career, and his dignity. But even in the middle of that nightmare, Frankl noticed something incredible. He saw that even when everything is taken away, a human being still has one final freedom. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Think about that for a second. The stimulus is what happens to you. A baby cries, a boss yells, a phone pings. The response is what you do. You pick up the baby, you yell back.